2006. Back in 2006, I decided that I was going to choose my own boss. I was no longer going to be a pawn, and I would make deliberate moves myself rather than sitting around waiting for somebody to tell me what my next job or reporting line was going to be. So, so as you are developing your career path and your professional plan, think about the kind of people who get the best out of you and the kind of people that you would want to work for and work with. So I have a shopping list, active shopping list for my bosses, and I want and need my boss to be a visionary, a delegator, a subject matter expert, have a sense of curiosity, but be flexible, not, have a fixed mindset, etc. So it's really important as you plan out your career, it's important to think about the kind of person you want to work for, as well as the kind of people you want to work with. Okay. And then again, people from South Asia in particular are not, they're shy about asking for things. And it's okay to ask for things, but you need to choose your moment carefully. And what I mean by that is, let's say you did a great project, or you brought in, a sale, or you did something awesome. Strike while the iron is hot. As people are giving you kudos for those things, that is your moment, and capitalize on it. So also, if you do not have a mentor or a sponsor or advisors, or you might have various people in your life, but you've never really thought of bucketizing them into these, buckets, take the time, take a moment to list these people and put a tag next to them. Are they playing a mentor role or a sponsor, or what role are they playing in your professional and personal development? Back in 2010, I actually, my daughter had just graduated and she was looking for a job. And I introduced her to a very good and very successful friend of mine. And I said to her, hey, Lena, Shahid can give you great advice. Why don't you ask him about your job search and advice on the job search? And Shahid, my friend, just said one thing to her. He said, Lena, network or not work. So the importance of network is really has been around and continues to grow. But the thing that I have learned over the years is just networking is not enough. What you need to apply is deliberate networking. Be deliberate about your networking and know why you are networking with certain people or certain groups or certain organizations, because deliberate networking is far more rewarding than blind networking. We live in an era where nobody talks about weaknesses anymore. So there's no such thing as strengths and weaknesses. There's strengths and opportunities, development opportunities, or challenges. Well, what I say is that if we are all human beings, none of us are walking around with wings on our shoulders as angels. So we all have things that we do really well. There are certain things that we are okay on, and then there are things that we are weak in, and we will, we can get better, but our weaknesses suddenly don't become our strengths. Except the only time your weakness becomes your strength is if you know what your weaknesses are, because then you will be much more mindful of things, of your blind spots. So people who do not understand that their weaknesses versus their strengths are at a disadvantage, because the weakness will come to bite them at some point. But once you have a good handle of your weaknesses, you can avoid certain blind spots. Soliciting feedback. Again, many years ago, I really started respecting the fact that feedback is a true gift, and especially, if the feedback is not good or positive, people find it very hard to give it. If somebody has basically got the courage and is taking the time to give you a piece of feedback which might be less than flattering, please thank them and keep them close to you, because hey, they have the courage and they can keep you honest, but also they can help you with your blind spots. One of the things I learned from a very good boss, who is now CEO of a company in the Silicon Valley, he told, I gave him some tough feedback, and I was working at Reuters, and he was my boss there, and it wasn't Devin. Um, but basically, it was very hard feedback for me to give, but somebody had to give him this feedback. I went into his office with this piece of feedback, but at the back of my mind, I thought I would be fired. So I had my things packed up because I was sure that he will say, "You're fired." Well, guess what? I gave this boss really, really tough piece of feedback, and the look on his face changed completely. And I could tell that he started going into deep thinking. And then his face looked very sad. And he said to me, "Wow, Ulya, what you just said to me pinched me. And because it pinched me so badly, I know what you told me is true. And thank you. I appreciate it. And I wish more people had the courage to give me this type of feedback." I mean, that was a lesson in leadership if I ever got one. Needless to say that this boss and I had a very strong working relationship for the next 7 years. And he always came to me if he needed to know the truth or a dose of reality. The other thing is, you know, we we hear so much stuff, and there's, even when we are in meetings, the number of times, especially if it's a call, we are multitasking. So we might be hearing things, but are we really listening? Again, the importance of good active listening is not to be underestimated. Always practice on your active listening skills, because we are hearing a lot of things, but we are not always listening. The point about dressing, and I know those of you who are in the Silicon Valley might be laughing at that: dress for the job you want. And I'm not sure somebody wearing torn jeans or shorts and flip flops, but what does that say? But certainly in my case, I always liked clothes, and I dressed a certain way. And every job that, especially in the early days, I can tell you that every job that I was in, people who didn't know what my job was assumed that I was way more senior than I ever was. So there is something to be said about dressing for the job you want. And the last point really is about the obnoxious roommate. This is this voice inside of you, whether you're a man or a woman, that keeps nagging at you and keeps criticizing you for things. Well, I have had it inside of me, that obnoxious roommate. And personally, I have not managed to get rid of her. I just locked her in a soundproof room. She comes out every now and again, but you got to do what you got to do and ignore the naysayer inside of you. Um, with all the technology advancements, when people ask me about work-life balance,